Everyone's whispering about it. Dealers are pretending it's not happening, and boat owners are quietly scrolling through forums at 2 a.m. because this year, a $5,000 Chinese outboard didn't just arrive in America. It started taking over, and nobody's ready. Let's find out. Something strange is happening at American marinas. Sandwiched between the usual lineup of Mercurys, Yamahas, and Hondas, there's a new kid on the dock. A shiny, budget-friendly outboard with a name nobody can pronounce on the first try. Parsun. It sits there like the quiet exchange student who suddenly shows up at football practice and casually outruns half the team. The reason everyone is staring, the price tag. While a mainstream 60-horsepower outboard from the Big Three will make your bank account sweat somewhere north of $9,000 to $10,000, a Parsun EFI 60 sits around $5,000 to $6,000. And here's the real twist. This isn't some backyard science project with a propeller. Chinese outboards have matured. The castings look solid. The electronics aren't from 2004. The engines actually start without bargaining with them like a stubborn donkey. People expected cheap, but what they're finding feels a lot closer to value. Dealers, meanwhile, keep watching them with the same expression a restaurant owner gets when someone opens a food truck outside. "Who invited you?" mixed with, "Please don't steal my customers." Whether you love them or hate them, you can't deny the momentum. Parsun has slipped into the American market quietly, confidently, and, thanks to that sweet $5,000 price point, very strategically. And every boater is now asking the same question. Are these things actually good, or is this just a budget fling waiting to break our hearts? Let's put the numbers on the table, because this is where Chinese outboards start punching way above their weight class. If you walk into a U.S. dealership today and ask for a brand new 60-horsepower outboard from Mercury, Yamaha, or Honda, you're basically signing up to adopt a second rent payment. Realistically, you're looking at $9,200 to $10,800 depending on dealer fees, rigging, and how friendly they feel that morning. Now compare that to a Parsun EFI 60, which rolls in at roughly $5,000 to $6,000 depending on the distributor and configuration. That's not pocket change, that's 40 to 50% cheaper. The kind of difference that makes boaters quietly justify the temptation. Look, babe, it's practically half price. That means we can buy more fishing gear, while pretending not to check the credit card limit. Even their smaller engines, like the 40 HP EFI, sit comfortably in the low $5,000 range, which is hilarious when you realize a Yamaha 40 HP can touch $7,000 plus. It's like going to buy a latte and finding out the shop next door sells the same thing for $2 because they don't believe in branding. So why is it cheaper? Simple: lower labor costs, direct-to-consumer distribution, and fewer marketing expenses. There's no glossy Super Bowl ad showing a boat flying through crystal water. Parsun's marketing is essentially, here's the engine, it works, it's cheaper, you want it or not. And honestly, that strategy is working frighteningly well. When an outboard costs less than your annual insurance bill, Americans start paying attention. Here's where things get interesting, because not all Chinese outboards are created equal. Just like not all instant noodles are dangerous, some actually taste great and only ruin your diet, not your week. The brand making the most noise today is Parsun, particularly their EFI 4-stroke lineup. These aren't carbureted dinosaurs. They use modern fuel injection, decent electronics, and surprisingly tidy build quality. Mechanics who've opened them up report something unexpected. The internals look organized, machining tolerances are consistent, and the engines don't feel like budget shortcuts glued together. That doesn't make them perfect, but it does make them credible, especially the 40 HP and 60 HP EFI models. They start reliably, idle smoothly, and, most importantly, don't sound like a blender full of nails at high RPM. Another name gaining slow traction is Hankai, but let's be honest, those engines are still the Wild West. Great for tiny dinghies, questionable for anything larger than your dignity. If you're putting a motor on a real fishing boat and you value coming back to shore, Parsun is the only mainstream Chinese brand currently passing the reliability sniff test in the U.S. The biggest advantage, parts availability has improved. A few years ago, ordering a replacement water pump felt like tracking a lost Amazon package in space. Now, parts arrive in days rather than months, thanks to proper U.S. distributors stepping in. Are Parsuns bulletproof? No. Are they finally good enough that boat owners aren't laughing them off the dock anymore? Absolutely. Now let's address the elephant in the marina. What exactly are Chinese outboards copping? Because nobody believes these engines were designed from scratch after a magical lightning bolt of inspiration. And honestly, they weren't. Parsun's earlier engines were essentially reverse-engineered Yamaha architectures. The mechanical DNA is unmistakable. Gear case shapes, block outlines, even certain mounting designs echo classic Yamaha four-strokes. Not a one-to-one clone, but definitely inspired. The same way fast fashion copies luxury clothes, but adds different buttons. The twist is that today, the newer EFI models aren't pure copies anymore. The electronic setups, fuel maps, and castings are noticeably different. Yes, the platform started with Yamaha-style geometry, but Parsun has shifted toward a hybrid identity. Part Yamaha heritage, part Chinese re-engineering, part whatever works and keeps the price down. And honestly, this strategy isn't new. Most industries have followed Japan's journey. Stage 1, copy. Stage 2, improve. Stage 3, compete. Right now, Chinese outboards are sitting between stage 1 and 2. They're not redefining marine propulsion, but they're no longer photocopies either. Dealers know this, and it makes them nervous. If a $5,000 outboard performs 80% as well as a $10,000 one, most new boaters won't care if the design DNA came from Yamaha's family tree. They just want something that pushes water without pushing them into debt. So yes, they started as copies, but now they're becoming their own thing. And that's what scares the established brands the most. Dealers aren't sweating because Parsun is bad. They're sweating because Parsun is good enough. That phrase strikes fear into the heart of any premium brand. If someone walks into a dealership and sees a $10,000 outboard next to a $5,000 outboard that does the same job with slightly less polish, the wallet starts whispering, "Choose the cheaper one, my child." Traditional dealers rely heavily on service revenue. Big brands have complex parts ecosystems, diagnostic tools, and years of customer loyalty. Chinese outboards disrupt that. They're simpler, cheaper to maintain, and now come with growing independent parts support, meaning boaters don't have to return to the dealership for everything. Another fear? Market flooding. If Chinese brands scale production faster than American or Japanese companies, the price gap could widen. Imagine walking into a dealership one day and seeing a 60-horsepower outboard for $4,200. That's the marine equivalent of dollar store toothpaste suddenly being as good as Colgate. There's also the reputation shift. 10 years ago, mentioning a Chinese outboard got you the same reaction as saying you bought sushi from a gas station. Today, people raise an eyebrow, but they don't laugh. They ask questions. And once curiosity replaces stigma, momentum builds fast. Whether U.S. dealerships like it or not, Chinese outboards are no longer a punchline, they're competition. And competition, especially at half the price, tends to win in the long run. Chinese outboards didn't just appear in America, they slipped in quietly. Like that one cousin who promises, "I'm only staying for a week," and suddenly has a favorite spot on your sofa. Over the last 5 years, though, the numbers don't lie. Their footprint is getting bigger, louder, and harder for U.S. dealers to ignore. The biggest reason? Price turbulence. When Yamaha, Mercury, and Suzuki pushed upward with 2023 to 2025 pricing jumps, boat owners started looking at their wallets the way people look at restaurant bills in London. Confused, defeated, but still somehow hungry. A brand new 60-horsepower outboard from the big names can sit in the $8,500 to $10,000 bracket, while a Chinese-built EFI equivalent hovers around the mid-$5,000 mark. That is not a small saving. That is 2 months of rent or half a vacation kind of saving. What really pushed things forward is fleet adoption. Small fishing guides, rental fleets, and lake marinas quietly began testing them. They didn't post about it. They didn't brag. They just bolted Parsun or Hidea onto a pontoon and waited. And when the engines didn't explode, melt, or summon dragons, word spread. Slowly, quietly, but effectively. Now throw in online retail. People can literally buy an outboard the way they buy microphones or air fryers. Click, add to cart, arrive in a crate. The barrier to entry has collapsed. And once something becomes that easy in America, it moves faster than a Black Friday queue outside Best Buy. The result? Chinese outboards aren't coming into the U.S. market anymore. They're already here, and they're multiplying. Here's the real question every boater whispers but never admits publicly. Is it finally time to buy a Chinese outboard? The honest answer is maybe, depending on who you are and what you expect. If you're the kind of person who wants Ferrari quality engineering at bicycle prices, no engine on earth will satisfy you. But if you're a budget-conscious boater who needs simple power, predictable performance, and the ability to smile at your bank account after the purchase, then yes, a Chinese 40 to 60 horsepower EFI begins to look very tempting. Start with expectations. Chinese outboards today aren't the old eBay specials that belonged in a museum of regret. Modern Parsun, Hidea, and Ocean power engines have proper EFI systems, cleaner castings, and more consistent assembly lines. They won't match Yamaha's 30-year reputation or Mercury's nationwide parts ecosystem, but they'll run, they'll push your boat, and they'll save you thousands. The trade-off? You're swapping premium dealer padding for DIY practicality. Parts may take longer, warranty may feel more email-based than shake hands at the marina, and resale value won't turn you into Warren Buffett. But here's the twist nobody talks about. Most boat owners don't keep small outboards for 20 years. They upgrade, swap, downsize, or change boats entirely. And if you're only keeping an engine for 5 to 7 years, a $5,000 EFI outboard suddenly becomes a completely logical choice, especially when it performs within 85 to 90% of what a major brand offers. So should you buy one? If you're practical, realistic, and love saving money, absolutely. So that's the truth behind the $5,000 Chinese outboard taking over America. Some models impress, some need caution, but the wave is real. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me which engine you want exposed next. Bigger stories are coming. Don't miss them.